What's going on, guys? Prodigal Lion here, and today Naughty Dog held two panels at PSX, one discussing the 10 years of Uncharted, and they had all the cast of from Nolan North, Emily Rose, Richard McGonigal, and all that. But I'm not really wanting to talk about that panel for this video. What I want to talk about is the Last of Us Part 2 panel, because we didn't really get anything major revealed to us. We didn't get a new trailer, gameplay trailer, or any huge details on a release date or anything like that. But we did get a few minor details and just a couple things that I wanted to share with you guys. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is pretty early on, like not long after the first trailer was revealed. If you guys have been keeping a close eye on The Last of Us Part 2, throughout Reddit, people really started going like really in-depth and like looking into the concept art and the trailer and doing research on the internet. And long story short, people on Reddit found out that the game, or at least a small portion of The Last of Us Part 2, is going to be taking place in Seattle. And that was what people started thinking and speculating, and I even made a video on it. I'll be sure to link that video at the end and down into the description for you guys to check out if you want. But today at the PSX, Neil Druckmann did confirm that the game will be taking place in Seattle, or at least a large portion of it will be. So, like I said, it was speculated pretty early on from Reddit users, and Neil Druckmann finally confirmed that today at PSX. Now, the host, Hannah Hart, she was kind of annoying. Like, there's some people think that she was kind of funny and brought humor, but there's also a lot of people who were saying that she was very cringy and kind of rude, and I don't know. I mean, I see both sides. Overall, she was enjoyable. She kept it upbeat, but yeah, she was definitely kind of annoying. But that's besides the point. The point is that one of the things that she kept asking like really hard questions that Naughty Dog obviously wasn't going to want to answer. She was asking hardcore if Joel is dead and when the release date is and if we can see something like certain things, and she was really out there, and I didn't really mind it, but you could kind of tell she's getting a little bit on Neil Druckmann's and the other people's nerves. Anyway, like I said, one of the things she asked is if Joel dies, and throughout that conversation, Neil Druckmann, just long story short, ended up talking about the world of The Last of Us and saying that no one is safe, and that includes both Ellie and Joel. And his whole point in saying that, he started talking about like Uncharted 4 Thief's End and how they did a bunch of promoting, like calling it Thief's End and making it all dark, and he talked about how they did all that to kind of make everybody wonder if Nate would die. But ultimately, Uncharted is a story that comes down to be much more lighthearted, and he contrasted that to the fact that The Last of Us is not. It is not as lighthearted. It is already much more darker and grittier and hardcore and tough as is. But the first game was actually based on love, and The Last of Us Part 2 is probably only going to get even darker and more gritty and more emotional, because he talks about how this story is going to be more about hate. So, long story short, this doesn't really reveal anything to us. It just kind of confirms that no one is safe. That just because Joel and Ellie are the main characters, that doesn't mean that there's not a possibility of them dying, as opposed to Nathan Drake in the Uncharted series. Now, probably the biggest reveal, I guess, the most informative thing we learned from Neil at PSX today was he was really debating. He was talking about how there was something that Hallie had an idea of, who's the co-writer, because you didn't know, Hallie Gross. He was talking about how she helped him out with a bunch of ideas, because Neil had an idea for the beginning and the end, but he didn't have the entire middle part, and that's kind of where Hallie was going to come in, and she helped with some ideas, and he struggled, and he said something about how he wanted to share an idea, but he's not going to, and so obviously Hannah, the host, she started trying to convince him, and the whole crowd was sort of like, oh. So, long story short, he finally said what the whole thing was, and what he said that he was trying about what is going to be happening in the game is he said that Hallie went home one night and said to her husband, "I think I got someone pregnant." And that's all he said. He left it at that, and the crowd didn't really get crazy about it, but they definitely were like, oh, like kind of like reacted to it. So basically what he's saying is that somebody in The Last of Us is gonna be pregnant. I think anybody who's been following The Last of Us Part 2 for a little bit now, I mean, it goes all the way back to the very last chapter in Uncharted 4 Thief's End with that teaser poster on the wall at the very end, with showing a girl pregnant and saying American Daughters on the poster, and that ever since then, anybody's been really keeping an eye out has been kind of really speculating if she's pregnant. And then in the most recent gameplay cutscene we got from The Last of Us Part 2 with the woman pointing at that supposedly Ellie's mother's stomach while she's being hanged, we all have been speculating that somebody's pregnant, and now Neil hinting at the fact that Hallie went home and said that to her husband. That pretty much confirms that somebody's going to be pregnant in The Last of Us Part 2. And is it going to be Ellie's mom? And are we going to be seeing Ellie's mom? I mean, I don't know. This feels like a little bit more straightforward coming from Neil Druckmann and Naughty Dog. I mean, we've already been speculating about it, and now that he says somebody's pregnant, everybody's gonna instantly be thinking it's Ellie's mom. And I don't know. Neil Druckmann and Naughty Dog are usually very, very good at steering us the wrong way. So I mean, although it still could be Ellie's mom that we see in the game that's pregnant, it could very well be somebody else, knowing the way Naughty Dog works. So yeah, those are like the really three most biggest things we learned about like what's actually within the game. But then they also went in to talk about how finished the game is going to be, and he said roughly 50 to 60% of the game is finished, which obviously we don't know exactly what that means or how much longer is left until we get to play the game. But that sounds about right to me. About 50 to 60% done sounds about right. That still kind of points towards a roughly early to mid 2019 release for the game. And we also did learn from Neil when we will be seeing a gameplay trailer for The Last of Us Part 2, which once again, Hannah kind of pushed him to do it. He didn't really want to say when we'll be seeing a certain trailer for the game, but she did kind of push him into it, and he revealed that we will be getting a gameplay trailer at E3 2018. So yes, guys, mark your calendars. Next June, I don't know exactly what the days are for E3, but yes, next June, we are going to be seeing a gameplay trailer for sure from The Last of Us Part 2. So I'm excited for that. I'm very excited to see the new gameplay mechanics, how it works, who we're playing as, which I'm pretty sure it's going to be Ellie, but I'm very curious who we're going to be, how she's going to play out. So hopefully the gameplay trailer does have either Joel or Ellie or both, because I really don't want to see any more of those new characters. I really just want to know about Joel and Ellie right now. I don't want to keep seeing more of the new characters quite yet. So that is pretty much everything we have about The Last of Us Part 2. But one more cool thing that he did say, that this doesn't really have anything specifically to do with The Last of Us, but it is cool. Neil Druckmann said, "We will forever continue to make single-player, linear, narrative-based games." And the crowd got happy and cheered, and I was honestly very happy to see that, because we're in a day and age in the gaming industry where pretty much everything is just getting to focus primarily on multiplayer and loot boxes and microtransactions, and that's just pretty much what the basis of the gaming industry is nowadays. And all my favorite games have always been single player games with a good story. Those have always been my favorite type of games, like the Uncharted series and The Last of Us. So to hear that Neil Druckmann is saying that Naughty Dog will forever continue to make those types of linear story-based games, that makes me very happy and more excited for the future than ever of Naughty Dog, because the Uncharted series is done. Obviously we can probably get a couple more spin-offs like we had with the Uncharted Lost Legacy game, but the Uncharted series is still done, and more than likely The Last of Us Part 2 will be the only other Last of Us game we'll see, unless we could probably get another single-player DLC for The Last of Us Part 2 maybe, but this is probably going to be it. That's why they're naming it Part 2. It's just kind of a second half to the original Last of Us, and I don't think they're going to really continue past that. So they're done with Uncharted. They'll more than likely be done with The Last of Us. So I'm actually very, very excited to see what their next big project is going to be after The Last of Us is done. Obviously, it's going to be a few years before we ever hear anything about that, and it'll probably be on the next generations of systems, such as on the PS5. So I'm excited for the future of Naughty Dog and more of their single-player games, and see what Neil Druckmann can come up with in the future. But yeah, that's everything I have for you guys. That's all the news we got that's really all the news we got actually for The Last of Us Part 2. I was kind of disappointed. I thought we'd hear at least a little bit more, but nonetheless, it's still something. We've gotten it confirmed that it's going to be in Seattle, or at least a portion of it will be. Somebody is pregnant. We'll be getting a gameplay trailer at E3 2018. The game is 50 to 60% done, and Neil implied that no one is safe, and that includes Joel and Ellie. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe for more gaming content and The Last of Us Part 2 news. And I will see you guys in the next video.